Hey, what's up? PizzaLovingNerd here. Today I'm going to be talking about the Freedom Phone, which is this new privacy-friendly phone focused towards conservative people. And personally, I wouldn't buy it, and I'm going to go into why in this video. Now, before I get called some sort of leftist, extreme leftist in the comment section, saying that I'm just worried about the right having their own phone or something, I would like to say that I am not a political commentator. I could care less about politics on this channel, and I feel like I'm pretty qualified to talk about it, given that I have a YouTube channel specifically about phones that help your privacy. So I have a Pine phone right here. It doesn't run Android. It's not dependent on any Google services. I got a Yade OS phone, and this runs a fully de-Googled version of Android, just like the Freedom phone. And I have a Vola phone right here. This normally comes with Android, but I installed Ubuntu Touch on it, which is also de-Googled. And I know a lot about what I'm talking about when it comes to privacy-friendly phones. And so, if you still think I'm some sort of leftist or something, please just watch the full video and go over the evidence I have behind all my claims, because I have noticed a lot of YouTubers and web articles talking about this are just making claims with no evidence at all. I'm not going to do that. I'll be explaining why I'm saying each thing about the phone, and I have evidence behind it, and I have some alternatives that you can use if you want something like the Freedom phone. So I know my stuff when it comes to privacy phones, so I think I'm pretty qualified to talk about this. So let's get to the video. Alright, so this is the website for the Freedom phone right here, and let's just go through it real quick and see what it has to offer. So the Freedom phone is a free speech and privacy first focused phone with features like tracking blockers and an uncensorable app store. Now, I think this is a good idea. As a matter of fact, I think so much that it's a good idea that I own multiple phones that already do this. And if this is legit, then it's good to have another option for those who want a free speech and privacy first focused phone. But I'm not sure about this one. And so first, I'm going to go quickly over why I don't really trust it that much. Then I'll go over some alternatives that will not only be much cheaper than the Freedom phone, but they might even be a better option even if you paid the same amount. So let's get onto it, and let's first talk about the Freedom OS, the first free speech operating system. The thing about Freedom OS though is, even though it's called Freedom OS, its source code isn't available. Lineage OS, which is I think what I would recommend instead of Freedom OS, has open source code on GitHub right here. And so this is all of the components of Lineage OS. Let's just click something random, Android Lineage SDK. It has all of its code open for people to audit. Freedom OS doesn't do that, so it's not as free as Lineage OS, which it looks like it's based off of, because one, the screenshot has not only the Lineage OS camera app, but also the Lineage OS trust notification. As a matter of fact, this whole trust feature that they're talking about is just built right into Lineage OS. And also the developer said that it's like a merge between Lineage OS and Graphene OS. So I don't really see any benefits you'd get of Freedom OS over Lineage OS, and that's free. And the trust thing, that's just a Lineage OS feature. I also think, even though this is supposed to be an uncensorable phone, I feel like they're censoring some information they don't want you to know. For example, where are the technical specs of this phone? Like this website, we can look at the FAQ. I guarantee the privacy policy won't have the specs. That's not where you put specs. But there's no spec list anywhere on this website. On top of that, it claims to work on Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint, but I haven't been able to find the official bands that it supports, so I can't verify that it works with all of these. And I think I know why I can't find the specs, because this is a Chinese phone rebranded. This is the Umidigi A9 Pro. If we go to buy now, we'll just do AliExpress. It's as low as $135 to buy one of these. Now, the specs in this phone are not that bad for $135 $35, even $200, these wouldn't be bad specs. Like a Helio P60 for less than $150 is a very good value. What's not a good value is a Helio P60 in a phone that cost $500. Yeah, that is actually really slow for a $500 phone. On top of that, they're not being honest that the Freedom Phone is based on the Umidigi A9 Pro. Like another privacy phone, one that I actually own, the Phone, they advertise right here that they are partnered with Gigaset, and the Phone is based on a Gigaset phone. But the Freedom Phone doesn't mention anywhere that it's a Umidigi A9 Pro. On top of that, this is coming from a company that has zero track record of shipping phones, and so I would usually be a little bit careful when you're buying phones from companies that aren't very well known, just because they don't always have the capacity to be able to manufacture all of them on time. There's been companies like Purism that are still struggling for that, and Purism's been struggling to make phones for 2 years now. And on top of that, you have to trust the Freedom Phone company to keep making updates for Freedom OS. I feel like eventually they're going to stop updating Freedom OS and then it will become insecure, and since the source code's not available, no one in the community can keep working on it. And I've been seeing a lot of websites saying it's an insecure mess, but they aren't actually saying why it's an insecure mess. The reason it's insecure to me is the fact that since the source code's unavailable, it cannot be audited for any spyware in the background or anything, and on top of that, they can stop updating the phone at any time, and then your phone will, become insecure, and since it's not open source, the community can't keep updating it. So, yeah. Now let's go over some alternatives to the Freedom Phone, and let's start with F-Droid. Now, this itself is an alternative to only one of the features in the Freedom Phone. The Freedom Phone claims to have an uncensorable app store, and I think F-Droid's the closest thing we have to uncensorable app store. And so after it's free to download, you can install this on any Android phone. And actually, as a matter of fact, Android itself is pretty uncensorable in general, because you can just download APKs and sideload apps. So Parlor, for example, that seems to be an app a lot of people who would want a Freedom Phone would want to run on their phone. Parlor allows you to sideload itself onto your Android phone, and that's actually how you install F-Droid too. But F-Droid's a little bit nicer because F-Droid will automatically update your apps, and you have a nice store and you don't have to go on the web to find an APK. The only requirement is it only allows open source apps, so again, the source code has to be public that people can read and contribute to for it to be listed on F-Droid. So because of that, things like Parler might not be allowed on F-Droid, not for any political reasons, just because they are not open source. However, something that is open source that may have some content that like the Play Store would like to censor. I'll use LBRY as an example because LBRY has some right-wing content on it, and that's something that Google Play likes to censor. Since this is open source, as long as it stays open source, it will not be removed for F-Droid for some of the content on it. And on top of that, F-Droid's app allows you to add third-party repositories full of apps. So if someone wanted to, someone could make a repo full of conservative apps like Parler and stuff, or Parler could just make their own repo that you can add to F-Droid to get auto updates and stuff. And since F-Droid's free to put on any device, if you want a Freedom Phone just for the uncensorable app store, I would just grab F-Droid as an APK. However, if you want a Freedom Phone for, the privacy benefits and everything, I have some other alternatives to show you. None of these come preloaded with things like Parler, Minds, Newsmax, whatever. None of them come preloaded with all of that stuff like the Freedom Phone does, but it takes probably 15 minutes to install all of these apps, and you'll be saving some money. So, yeah. Let's start with the e.Foundation. So, these people refurbish phones and put a privacy-friendly operating system on them called EOS. And this OS is kind of iOS-like in the way it's laid out. So if you're coming from an iPhone, you'll kind of feel at home on EOS. And it ships with an open source technology called microG, which allows you to run apps that require Google services to be installed without actually having the Google services installed, so this will not collect any data. And if you want an alternative to Google Docs and Google Drive and Gmail, this has its own e-services that you can use instead. So EOS, I think, is the best option for most people. If you're in the United States, they don't sell refurbished phones. You have to buy a new TerraCube 2e if you want hardware that can run it with it pre-installed, because I know a lot of people who would be buying this phone are not very tech savvy and probably don't want to have to install software themselves. So if you are in the US, the TerraCube 2e is the phone that they sell with it, and this phone is new and not refurbished, and it comes with a 4-year warranty. And this phone right here is made to be repairable, so you can repair it yourself too. So yeah, that's EOS. That's probably my biggest recommendation for most people. The next one is YodeOS. Full disclosure, they have sent me a phone running their OS, and this is another company that sells phones, new and refurbished, that run a custom OS. This is only available in Europe, unfortunately. So if you're in America, you'll have to get one of these shipped from Europe, which will be expensive, but most of these phones should work on American carriers. And this uses a more Android-like layout, so regular stock Android instead of an iOS-like layout, as well as having the ability to track what apps are trying to, to collect your data and everything, and it blocks a lot of the data requests. And yeah, YodeOS is very clean, very fast. I like it a lot, and I have a full review of it on the top right that goes into all of its details. And the final hardware option I'll be showing off is the Volaphone. Now, again, this is another one. They shipped one of these to the US for me, although I still paid for it. This runs its own OS based on Android that is designed to be less distracting than other mobile operating systems. So if we look at the screenshots here, it's very minimal, and it's designed so that you won't get distracted by things on it. Now, unfortunately, unlike the two other phones, this one is Europe only, so you can't get one of these in the US, and even if you can, they will not support American carriers, which I know for a fact because I have one, and it doesn't work on my carrier. And it doesn't ship microG out of the box, so getting Google apps, or apps that even need Google services, which most apps do, getting that working will be a little bit harder out of the box. However, I still think this is a good option if you want to just use your phone just to get like some email done, or listen to music, or use Telegram, or just SMS. You kind of want to use a smartphone similar to a dumb phone. This is probably one of the better options if you live in Europe. Now, with an exception of the Volaphone, all of these, e.foundation OS, YodeOS, both of these can be installed on existing phones. So right here for YodeOS, if we go to installation, it has several phones that are supported, and you can do this on your existing phone, although you kind of have to have some knowledge on how to do that, because it is a little bit harder than just buying a phone pre-installed with an OS. EOS does this too. It has an easy installer for some devices, although the amount of devices the easy installer supports are not that many. However, if you want to install it manually, it actually supports tons of devices. Like, look at this amount of devices. It supports a lot of devices. Like, if you have an Android phone that is more than 2 years old, you probably have a phone that can run EOS. And I think the best alternative, if you know how to install it, is Lineage OS. Like EOS, this actually supports more phones than EOS does. This is a list of all of the supported devices, so it basically supports any phone you could think of that is older than 2 years. And this is the OS I run on my Android phone every day. I use a OnePlus 7T, which, as you can see, is supported right here. And I use Lineage OS on this, and it runs great. It comes pre-installed with F-Droid. Actually, YodeOS and EOS also come pre-installed with F-Droid, and the Volaphone does too. I just absolutely love Lineage OS, and if you can figure out how to install it, I highly recommend it. It's a little bit more difficult to install than some of the other ones, but if you can get it installed, it's just a great experience. So if you want a privacy-friendly phone and you have a friend or someone who knows how to install it for you and you can get them to install it for you, I highly recommend Lineage OS. It doesn't come with micro G out of the box, although you can actually flash micro G on top of it after you install it, and that's how you can get apps that need Google services working. Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to set up, but once you get it set up, it's probably the best experience for a privacy-friendly phone you can have. I love Lineage OS, and I highly recommend it to anyone who wants a privacy-friendly phone who can install it. So yeah, overall, the Freedom Phone is pretty sketchy, and considering it's $500, there's much better, cheaper alternatives you can get. Considering all of these OSs right here, if you don't buy hardware, they're completely free. And so you don't have to buy a whole new phone to have these features. You can if you want, if you don't want to have to learn how to install something. However, for the most part, you can get all of these features for free on an existing phone. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope this helped you out if you're about to buy one of these or pre-order one or whatever. And if you're interested more in privacy-friendly phones, please subscribe because I do a lot of videos on them.